Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we explore the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary tactics of special and specialized forces in World War II that helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in modern history. I'm your host, Michael Wires, and as always, we're here to unravel the hidden stories behind the daring exploits of special and specialized forces in World War II. In this episode, we continue our 5-part series about the Provisional Ranger Force during D-Day. Today, in Episode 2, we pick up the story in the early hours of June 6, 1944. Ranger Force A is at sea, packed into their landing craft and heading toward the cliffs. Ahead of them lies a hazardous approach, confusion, enemy fire, and the deadly surf. This is the run to the cliffs. In Episode 3, The Fight on the Point, we'll follow what happens once the Rangers reach the top, as they search for the missing guns and fight to hold the position against German counterattacks. Then, we shift east to Omaha Beach. Episode 4, Ranger Force B, at Pointe de la Percée, follows Captain Ralph Goranson's men as they land at the western edge of Omaha and battle to secure the flanks. And in Episode 5, Ranger Force C's overland push, Major Max Schneider leads his battalion along the bluffs, clearing German strongpoints and racing to link up with Force A. But let's start at the beginning. The first raid on the Pointe du Hoc battery, codenamed Operation Flashlamp, is carried out by the United States Army Air Forces on June 5, 1944. At 6:14, the 379th Bombardment Group departs from Royal Air Force Kimbolton in Cambridgeshire. 41. B-17. Flying Fortresses are assigned to the mission. Of these, 36 reach the target area. Just after 9:21, they release 427 bombs, each weighing 227 kilograms. The bomb pattern lands roughly 150 meters from the designated aiming point, but the strike is assessed as fair to good. Probable hits are recorded on at least 2 of the 6 French 15.5 centimeter guns. Additional damage is inflicted on the surrounding infrastructure. A German report later confirms that one of the under-construction casemates is hit, though details remain scarce, overshadowed by the Allied invasion the very next day. The heaviest raid comes in the early hours of D-Day itself. At approximately 4:45, Pathfinder mosquitoes mark the target at Pointe du Hoc. Despite scattered cloud cover, they succeed in releasing their target indicators. Moments later, 115 Lancaster bombers from Royal Air Force Bomber Command's 5 Group begin their attack. Flying at altitudes between 1,800 and 3,600 meters, they strike for nearly half an hour. In total, more than 575 metric tons of bombs are dropped. The ordnance includes 454-kilogram semi-armor-piercing bombs and 227-kilogram general-purpose bombs. This is the largest single bombing concentration ever directed against Pointe du Hoc, greater than the combined weight of all previous raids. The airspace over the coastal site becomes dangerously congested, and at least 2 bombers are forced to abandon their runs to avoid collision. Yet the results are decisive. Squadron reports describe the battery as flattened, with its infrastructure left in ruins. The June 6th raid is regarded as a major success. It substantially weakens the German position and reduces the threat posed to the Allied landings on the Normandy coast, only hours away. The pre-dawn air raid leaves the battery at Pointe du Hoc scarred and smoking. More than 500 tons of bombs have been dropped, but for the men still at sea, the effect is uncertain. Whatever damage the bombers inflicted, the cliffs must still be scaled and the position secured. 16 kilometers offshore, the transports HMS Ben Maitri and HMS Amsterdam lie at anchor. Well before dawn, the Rangers, fully equipped and carrying 5 days of rations and ammunition, move to the boat deck. There, the waiting assault craft hang from the davits. At around 4 o'clock, loading begins. The Rangers are fortunate. Their ships can lower the craft with passengers already aboard. Other assault troops elsewhere must climb down wet, swaying nets into boats, tossing violently in the dark sea. Colonel James Rudder boards LCA 888 with Lieutenant James Ike Eichner of Headquarters Company. At the last moment, they separate, avoiding the risk of both senior officers being lost in the same craft. A naval shore fire control party of 12 men and a forward observer from the 58th Armored Field Artillery Battalion are attached to Rudder's headquarters. They are spread across the LCAs, carrying Company E. At 4:30, 2 hours before H hour, the boats are lowered into the sea and begin their long approach to the coast. Conditions are immediately difficult. Winds blow above 30 kilometers per hour. Waves rise to 1.5 meters. Spray breaks constantly across the bows. The small craft pitch and roll heavily, and seasickness strikes almost at once. Some Rangers are overwhelmed, while others find relief in the constant need to bail out water with helmets. Once launched, the flotilla pulls clear of the transports to avoid congestion. At the same time, 2 landing craft support gunboats arrive to provide close support. Leading the assault wave is Motor Launch 304, a Fairmile B commanded by Temporary Lieutenant Colin Beaver of the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. Aged 40, Beaver has served aboard the launch since December 1943. Navigation proves difficult in blackout conditions, with fog and haze hanging over the water. Dead reckoning is unreliable in the strong currents and high winds. Instead, Beaver relies first on a radio navigation set, accurate to about 45 meters, and on radar. Both soon fail due to a power fault. As dawn breaks around 5:30, Beaver finally sights the coast through smoke and haze from the bombardment. But reconnaissance photographs offer little guidance. Pointe du Hoc and Pointe Ras de la Percée look nearly identical from the sea. Mistaking one for the other, he alters course to port, steering the flotilla toward the wrong promontory. At 5:40, 3.5 kilometers from shore, LCT 413 receives the code word Splash. 4 ducks, amphibious trucks officially designated DUKW, disembark prematurely. Laden with heavy swan ladders, they struggle to keep pace in the choppy sea. Meanwhile, disaster strikes in the heavy swell. 13 kilometers offshore, LCA 860, carrying Captain Harold Slater and 20 Rangers of Company D, swamps in waves over 1 meter high. Rescue craft recover the men and return them to England. They will not rejoin the battalion until D+19. 10 minutes later, supply craft LCA 914 sinks with only 1 survivor. Another LCA 1003 takes on water and is forced to jettison the rucksacks of Companies D and E. Other landing craft also suffer flooding, their crews bailing with helmets to keep afloat. From the start, the Rangers are soaked by sea spray, their ropes and ladders waterlogged and far heavier than intended. Despite losses, 9 assault craft remain in formation, advancing in 2 columns. Rudder's boat leads the starboard line. They prepare to fan out as they near their objective. But the guiding motor launch has already lost its bearings, steering them toward Pointe de la Percée, 5 kilometers east of Pointe du Hoc. The British destroyer HMS Talibant, a Type 3 escort destroyer, observes the flotilla veering east. At 5:40, it takes station in the fire support channel, midway between USS Satterley and USS Thompson. 10 minutes later, at 5:50, it begins firing at less than 800 meters against unseen targets on the cliffs, aiming to saturate the defenses before the Rangers arrive. Naval gunfire across the sector begins at 5:50. Battleships including USS Texas, with 356mm guns, concentrate on Pointe du Hoc. At 6:10, 20 minutes before the planned landing, the bombardment lifts to allow 18 U.S. medium bombers to strike the battery. They release 33 metric tons of bombs. Unlike other targets along Omaha Beach, no delay is ordered, since bomb craters here will not hinder the assault. At 6 o'clock, one Ranger landing craft passes close to Talibant, still steering east. At 6:15, fire is briefly lifted, then resumed. By now, Colonel Rudder realizes the error. From the lead craft, he orders a westward turn. The flotilla corrects course, but the delay is significant. Instead of landing at H-hour, 6:30, the Rangers will not reach shore until nearly 40 minutes later. The correction brings them close inshore, parallel to the cliffs and only a few hundred meters from the coast. This exposes them to fire from German strongpoints spread along 5 kilometers of shoreline. Fortunately, it is scattered and inaccurate. At 6:40, HMS Talibant shifts fire to designated targets 81 and 82. Its gunners observe enemy fire against the trailing ducks. At least 2 German light machine guns are active. The ducks take casualties and 2 vehicles are disabled. Talibant responds with 102mm and 40mm weapons, concentrating on the cliff face and top. Enemy fire slackens. At 6:46, Talibant continues pounding targets 81 and 82. The Rangers suffer no further losses from these positions. By 7 a.m., fire is lifted, though small arms fire still reaches the assault wave from the cliff tops. USS Satterley engages these remaining positions. At 7:03, Talibant shifts its aim to other targets, and by 7:10, it withdraws from the fire support area. Its gunners report that targets 67 and 77 are completely neutralized. Targets 81 and 82, engaged for 25 minutes before H-hour, are judged only 60% suppressed. Up to 4 German light machine guns are believed to remain active against the Rangers as they finally near the base of Pointe du Hoc. The Rangers' late arrival at Pointe du Hoc has consequences that ripple across the wider battle. The 38-minute delay alters the course of events over the next 2 days. Behind them at sea, Ranger Force C waits for the signal of success. 8 companies, the main Ranger Force, stand ready to follow. They wait for 2 flares, fired from 60mm mortars at the point, to confirm that Force A has secured the cliffs. By 7 o'clock, no signal has appeared. Colonel Max Schneider prepares to execute the contingency plan. Faced with silence and confusion, Turnbull and Schneider conclude that the landing has not succeeded. At 7:15, they decide together to execute Plan 2. Ranger Force C will not attempt Pointe du Hoc. Instead, they divert to Dog Green Beach. They do not know it at the time, but this 15-minute delay spares them from even greater losses. Earlier in the hour, Dog Green is still under devastating fire. The plan for the landing itself also requires adjustment. Because the flotilla now approaches from the east, Company D cannot swing wide to assault the western side of the promontory. To ensure a simultaneous strike, all 9 assault craft form into a single line abreast and head for the eastern side of Pointe du Hoc. The delay has given the defenders precious time. Naval gunfire and bombing ended at 6:25, just before the planned H hour. Nearly 40 minutes pass before the Rangers reach the beach. In that time, the German garrison recovers from the shock of the bombardment and reorganizes at the cliff top. As the landing craft close in, enemy fire intensifies. Rifle and machine gun fire pours down. Small groups of German soldiers appear at the cliff edge. Though no artillery fire comes from the battery itself, automatic weapons are enough to rake the flotilla. The assault craft, with freeboards only 45 centimeters high, had earlier been a small target. Now, at close range, they offer no protection. Fire sweeps across the decks. Each boat suffers casualties, thinning the already small ranks of Force A. In LCA 884, 3 Rangers are hit. The craft replies with bursts from its Lewis guns, backed by Browning automatic rifles fired from the deck. USS Satterlee, lying just over 2 kilometers offshore, spots German troops forming at the cliff edge. She opens up with her main battery and machine guns, laying fire across the position. Motor Launch 304 joins in, bringing its 47mm gun, 20mm cannon, and machine guns to bear. Together, their fire suppresses the defenders long enough for the Rangers to complete the final run-in. It is not without losses, but the combined support prevents catastrophe. At 7:08, the first assault craft grind ashore beneath the cliffs. At that moment, Colonel Rudder's staff finally breaks radio silence. The message goes out. Colonel Schneider is to land at Vierville. The transmission is received and acknowledged. At 7:08, 9 assault craft grind onto the shingle beneath Pointe du Hoc. They land along a front no more than 460 meters wide. The rightmost boat touches down directly under the tip of the promontory. The rest space themselves along the cratered beach. Though the distance between some teams is small, each operates independently, confronting its own obstacles and enemy fire. The strip of beach between sea and cliff is less than 27 meters deep. It is gouged with bomb and shell craters. In places, men sink to their necks as they land, the clay bottom sucking at their boots. Yet the shattered ground offers some protection. The craters blunt the blast of grenades thrown from above. Only 2 Rangers are known to be hit by these stick grenades, which rely on blast rather than fragments. German soldiers appear on the cliff edge. Some are struck and fall, tumbling down with loosened rocks. Among the chaos, 2 paratroopers are already on the beach. They belong to the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. Their Dakota transport crashed into the channel shortly after 1 in the morning. Now, as the Rangers storm ashore, the 2 survivors join them at the cliff base. The 4 amphibious ducks, specially prepared for this mission, fare badly. All are driven by British Royal Army Service Corps drivers. Each carries a 30-meter fire brigade ladder requisitioned from London. The plan is to drive them onto the sand, raise the ladders, and give the Rangers a direct path to the cliff top. As the ducks approach, one is hit by a German 20mm cannon. It sinks in the channel. 5 of the 9 men aboard killed or wounded. The other 3 reach the shore, but the beach proves impossible. Shell craters and soft sand bog them down short of the cliffs. Colonel Rudder orders the crews to raise the ladders anyway and provide covering fire. They elevate the ladders vertically, Rangers climbing the rungs to fire Browning automatic rifles at the defenders above. At least 2 of the drivers, Corporal Good and Private Blackmore, climb the cliffs alongside the Rangers. Both fight as riflemen in the line. When ammunition runs low, they climb down again under fire, haul Vickers machine guns from the stranded ducks, and carry them back up the ladders. Later that day, Blackmore is wounded in the foot. After treatment, he returns to the line. He rescues a wounded Ranger under machine gun and mortar fire, carries ammunition forward, salvages supplies, and repairs weapons. He continues until evacuated on the 7th of June. Corporal Good fights on until relief arrives. Other British sailors from beached landing craft also join the defense of the point. As the assault craft close in, German fire intensifies. Machine guns and mortars sweep the beach. As soon as ramps drop, the Rangers fire their J projectors. These devices launch grapnels trailing rope ladders, rockets whooshing skyward as the boats crunch into the sand. One Ranger remembers a loud explosion. At the same instant, the ramps went down. The results are mixed. Heavy surf has soaked many of the ropes, making them too heavy to carry. Some rockets fizzle, others fall short. An official report notes that on only 2 craft did the rockets fail entirely. 7 or 8 managed to lodge at least one rope or ladder on the cliff edge, but the sectional commando ladders lashed to the boat's sides have mostly been swept away in the crossing. Where equipment fails, the Rangers improvise. They use handheld grapnel launchers, tossing hooks by arm. One snags the cliff top and carries several men upward before the rope is shot away. Others raise extension ladders carried aboard. German defenders fire down, cutting ropes and hurling grenades. Yet to aim, they must expose themselves. Rangers scramble into craters and behind rubble at the cliff base, taking what cover they can. Naval fire support begins again at this critical moment. USS Satterlee, just over 2 kilometers offshore, sees the assault craft land under fire. She opens with her 5-inch main battery and 40mm guns blasting the cliff tops. Commander J.W. Marshall later calls this fire decisive in helping the Rangers get ashore. The men on the beach are less certain. Only a few recall naval support at the time. Colonel Rudder himself is nearly buried when an explosion knocks a chunk of cliff down beside him. Some believe it was friendly fire. Others suspect German booby traps using naval shells suspended above the edge. Despite the confusion, the assault presses forward. About 15 Rangers are hit on the beach, most by enfilade fire from the left. But within 10 minutes of landing, the first men are climbing, ropes swaying, grenades bursting, German fire rattling down from above. One by one, the boat teams begin to reach the top of Pointe du Hoc. Colonel Rudder's landing craft, LCA 888, is the first to reach the beach. Aboard are 15 Rangers from Company E and 6 men from his headquarters, including Lieutenant J.W. Eichner, the communications officer. As they land, German soldiers appear on the cliff edge. Sergeant Bogetto fires his Browning automatic rifle, hitting one of them. The others vanish from sight. With the rocket grapnels failing, 2 Rangers, both skilled in free climbing, try to scale the cliff unaided. They cannot. The face is slick with clay, crumbling under their grip. Knife holds are impossible. Yet the bombardment has collapsed part of the cliff, creating a 12-meter rubble ramp. A section of commando ladder is hauled to the top of this ramp and set in place with a toggle rope. Rangers climb in pairs, one cutting footholds, another bracing the ladder. Technician 5th grade George Putzek finally reaches the edge and anchors the rope. From then on, the climb becomes easier. Within 15 minutes of landing, all Company E Rangers from LCA 888 are on the cliff top. Colonel Rudder and his headquarters staff remain below, sheltering in a shallow cave at the cliff base from enfilade fire. By 7:25, Eichner establishes radio contact and signals the landing. At 7:30, he transmits the code, "Men up the cliff." At 7:45, he sends, "Praise the Lord," confirming the Rangers are on top. The message is not relayed properly, delaying higher command's awareness of success. LCA 861 grounds, about 23 meters from the cliff. A platoon of Company E, under Lieutenant Theodore Lapres, is aboard. Their rockets fail. The ropes are too heavy, waterlogged, and fall short. Grenades wound 2 men. A few Germans fire from the cliff edge, but are forced back by return fire. The platoon brings smaller grapnels ashore. A hand-launched rocket catches. Private First Class Harry Roberts climbs first. The rope slips or is cut, and he falls. A second rocket line is fired. Roberts climbs again and makes the top in 40 seconds, anchoring the rope. It later fails under the next man's weight, leaving Roberts stranded. He is eventually recovered. 5 men, including La Presse, join him on the summit and push toward the northern observation post. A violent explosion shakes the cliff, half burying Private Medeiros in rock and mud. The source is uncertain, either naval fire or a German cliff-edge mine with a time fuse. Despite this, Medeiros and 4 others reach the top and move inland. LCA 862 lands 90 meters left of La Presse's boat, carrying 15 Rangers and Lieutenant Johnson's Naval Fire Control Party. They come under machine gun fire from the east. 1 man is killed, another wounded, 2 more injured by grenade fragments. Their rockets are fired from the beach. 1 plain rope and 2 toggle ropes reach the top, though 1 slips free. Lieutenant Joseph Liegans, Staff Sergeant Joseph Cleves, and Technician Victor Aguzzi climb the remaining 2. They drop into a crater on top and are soon joined by more Rangers. Without pause, they advance to their objective. LCA 722 touches down 20 meters left of Rudder's craft. On board are 15 Rangers of Company E, 5 men from Battalion Headquarters, a Stars and Stripes photographer, and a British commando officer, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Trevor, OBE, of the Welch Regiment. Trevor, formerly of No. 1 Commando, had helped train the Rangers in cliff assaults. He is present as liaison and observer for combined operations. The craft also carries a radio set, a 60mm mortar, demolitions, and pigeons. The boat lands in the lip of a crater. Private John Silman is hit 3 times but survives. Grenades prove ineffective. 1 ladder and 1 rope reach the top, both climbable. Technician Edward Smith ascends in 3 minutes and engages German troops alongside Sergeant Roby and Private Peterson. By 7:45, the mortar team has climbed as well. LCA 668 from Company D is diverted from its intended sector. It grounds short on debris. Rangers swim 6 meters to shore. Sergeant Leonard Lamel, wounded while carrying a rocket box, presses on. 3 lines make the cliff, though only 1 is climbable. His men add an extension ladder onto the rubble slope, reducing the gradient. 12 Rangers, including Lamel and Lieutenant George Kirchner, reach the top and move inland. LCA 858 ships water on the run-in. The crew bail constantly to keep her afloat. She beaches slightly behind the others. Rangers disembark into a deep crater filled with chest-high mud. 1 bazooka is ruined. 3 men are wounded by machine gun fire. Rockets are fired, but the ropes, sodden and heavy, fail. Only 1 hand-thrown rope holds. Exposed, the Rangers dash to its base, climb with difficulty, and reach the top within 15 minutes. Company F's craft are displaced eastward by earlier mislandings. LCA 887 lands under fire, but sea conditions cause little trouble. 2 men are wounded. The boat grounds short of dry beach, forcing men into a flooded crater. Sergeant William Petty's Browning automatic rifle is soaked, later caked in mud, but still functions in action. The heavy rocket ropes cannot reach the cliff. Lieutenant Arman leads men onto the sand, hauling out rockets, toggle ropes, and ladders. Technical Sergeant Cripps volunteers to fire the rockets manually. Using his hotbox, he stands within a meter of each launcher, setting them off 1 by 1. Each blast blinds him and showers him in sand. Witnesses say he is barely recognizable after the 4th firing, but all 4 lines reach the cliff. Petty and Technician Carl Winch climb under fire and secure a position above. LCA 884, also from Company F, is raked with fire during the approach. 3 men are wounded. 4 grapples clear the edge, but all ropes hang exposed to enemy fire. The only rope ladder snags on rocks and hangs at an angle. Several attempts to climb fail. Lieutenant Jacob Hill leads his men leftward under fire, linking up with ropes from LCA 883. LCA 883 is the last boat to land, about 270 meters left of its planned sector. Here, the cliff face offers a natural rib of rock, shielding the Rangers from heavy fire. The beach is firm and dry. All 6 rockets succeed. Ropes cascade over the edge, and the Rangers climb exactly as planned. Even so, the ascent is punishing. First Lieutenant Richard Wintz, climbing hand over hand on a plain rope, reaches the top utterly spent, later admitting he had never felt such exhaustion in his life. The first 2 great obstacles, landing and scaling the cliffs, are overcome. Despite the delayed arrival, German resistance is scattered and disorganized, apart from the accurate enfilade fire coming from the machine gun position east of Pointe du Hoc. The Rangers' equipment and training prove their worth. Only 2 of the assault craft fail to lodge at least 1 rocket rope on the cliff edge. Where rockets fall short, hand projectors and extension ladders fill the gap. Only 1 boat team is forced to climb on ropes launched by another. The amphibious ducks, fitted with the towering swan ladders, are less successful. Craters at the waterline trap them. One tries to raise its ladder, but the contraption sways, falling short of the cliff edge and proving too unstable to climb. Even so, the swan vehicles are not entirely without value. One, under Sergeant Stuyvesant, gives covering fire during the assault. Raising its ladder to full height, Stuyvesant braces behind a small steel shield and mans twin Vickers K guns. Suspended in the air, swaying in the wind, he opens fire on the cliff top. His aim is poor from the unstable perch, but the sudden appearance of automatic fire from an unexpected angle unsettles the Germans. They respond immediately, concentrating their fire on the exposed platform. For a time, Stuyvesant continues to fire until the incoming rounds grow too heavy. He gives the order to lower the ladder and withdraws. The broken cliff face itself aids the assault. Naval and air bombardment has collapsed sections into heaps of rubble. These mounds shield the Rangers from flanking fire and reduce the height they must climb. Cratered edges on the summit give cover to the first men over the top. The assault parties show speed, determination, and adaptability. They improvise where equipment fails. That spirit proves decisive. By 7:40, half an hour after touchdown, the cliffs are secure. With the exception of casualties, command staff, and some mortar crews, the attacking companies are on top. 30 to 40 men remain below, most of them wounded or kept back for duties at the beach. The bulk of the Ranger force is now poised to move inland and complete its mission. And that concludes episode 2 of our 5-part series on the Provisional Ranger Force during D-Day. We've followed Ranger Force A through the surf and onto the shattered beach, and we've seen how, against the odds, they managed to scale the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc. But reaching the top was only the beginning. In our next episode, The Fight on the Point, we'll follow the Rangers inland as they search for the missing guns, defend against German counterattacks, and fight to hold their fragile foothold. After that, we'll shift east to Omaha Beach. Episode 4, Ranger Force B, at Pointe de la Percée, tells the story of Captain Ralph Goranson's men landing at the western edge of Omaha and fighting to secure the flanks. And in Episode 5, Ranger Force C's Overland Push, we'll follow Major Max Schneider and his battalion as they advance along the bluffs, clearing German strongpoints and racing to link up with Force A. To explore more, including photographs, maps, original documents, and the full list of sources behind this series, visit www.worldwar2-sof.com. Among the most valuable works we drew on are Allied Intelligence and the Cover-Up at Pointe du Hoc by historian Gary Stern. D-Day Cover-Up at Pointe du Hoc, the history of the 2nd and 5th U.S. Army Rangers, 1st May to 10th June 1944, also researched and written by Stern. and the cover-up at Omaha Beach, Maisie Battery, and the U.S. Rangers, another of Stern's major studies. We also relied on smashing Hitler's guns. The Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, D-Day 1944, by military historian Stephen J. Zaloga. Together, these works provide both the broad picture and the fine detail behind the Rangers' role in Normandy. They, along with many other sources, have guided our research for this episode. Join us for the next episode as the Rudders Force A fights for holding Pointe du Hoc out of the hands of the Germans. Remember, these stories remind us that the fate of entire campaigns often rested on the shoulders of small elite units, those who led from the front, striking hard and holding fast in the face of overwhelming odds. Thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories of courage, daring, and the unsung heroes of World War II. Be sure to tune in next time as we dive into yet another remarkable operation that helped shape the outcome of the war. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your courage steady, and remember, sometimes the most incredible victories come from the unlikeliest of places. See you in the next episode. I'm your host, Michael Wyers, signing off. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.